It's a strange kind of pain, watching someone erase your family like you were a glitch in their love story. She smiled through every lie. We smiled back. But when my turn came, I made sure she'd remember exactly how that silence feels. If you've ever dreamed of seeing karma finally catch up with the people who wronged you, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story proves that no secret stays buried forever. My name's Hannah. I'm 29, and I live just outside Portland, Oregon. I'm the middle child. My brother Ethan is 31, and my younger sister Mara is 25. Our parents, Laura and David, are the kind of people who still host Sunday dinners and text us recipes like it's 2005. We're not perfect, but we've always been close. Or at least, we were. Until she came along. Her name's Sabrina, and when Ethan brought her home for the first time, we all tried. We laughed at her jokes, we wore the colors she picked, we even rearranged our schedules to help with her perfect wedding. But back then, I didn't realize I was helping build a stage, one she'd later use to erase us completely. Back then, I was just trying to survive her smile. Now I understand why silence can be the sharpest form of revenge. I still remember the first time I met Sabrina. She walked into my parents' living room wearing this buttercream dress that looked like it belonged in a catalog, her perfume leaving a trail like she was announcing herself to the world. My brother, Ethan, stood beside her, nervous, his hand lightly resting on the small of her back like he was guiding a celebrity through a crowd. Mom smiled too hard. Dad poured her wine before anyone even asked. That was how it started, all of us orbiting her. I'm Hannah, 29 now, but back then I was 27 and living just outside Portland, Oregon. Ethan and I have always been close. We'd fought the usual sibling wars growing up, who got the car on weekends, who paid for a late-night pizza, but we were inseparable. He'd been through bad breakups before. I always thought I'd be there for the good one. Then came Sabrina. Sabrina wasn't cruel, not in obvious ways. She was charming. That's the problem with people like her. They never punch you in the face. They smile while they rearrange your life. Within a few months, she had managed to become the emotional center of every conversation. She'd say things like, "You guys are so laid back. I wish my family could be that easygoing." But there was always a flicker behind her eyes, something that said, "You're not enough." When the wedding planning started, I offered to help. I love event planning, flowers, lights, little details. She smiled politely like I had suggested finger painting. "Oh, thank you, Hannah, but my planner's already got everything covered. You just relax and enjoy the day, okay?" It sounded sweet, but the tone was crystal clear. You're not needed. A few weeks before the wedding, a group text landed. "Hey everyone, for the photos, we're going with champagne and sage tones. Please make sure your outfits match." That's normal, right? Coordinated colors, Pinterest perfection. Except Sabrina didn't just suggest, she expected. She sent color swatches, matching tie recommendations for my dad, a link to the exact heels my sister should probably wear if she wants to fit the vibe. Mom laughed it off, saying, "She's just excited, honey. It's her big day." But Dad muttered under his breath, "It feels like we're working for her." Still, we played along. We smiled, ordered the clothes, and flew in relatives from out of state, because that's what family does. The night before the wedding, she made the comment that changed everything. We were at the rehearsal dinner, candles flickering, everyone trying to keep the peace. Sabrina was sitting across from me, swirling her wine like she was waiting for applause. Then she said it, not loudly, not directly, but perfectly aimed. "I just hope everyone remembers tomorrow's not a costume party. I know our side of the family takes things seriously, but I'm not expecting much from Ethan's side." The table went quiet. My mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Dad looked down at his plate. I laughed because what else do you do when someone slaps you politely across the face? I said, "Don't worry, we'll try to act civilized." She smiled that perfect little curve of her lips, the kind that says, checkmate. Later, Ethan found me outside on the patio, arms crossed, looking at the stars. She didn't mean it like that, he said quietly. Then, how exactly did she mean it, Ethan? She's just stressed. You know how she gets before big events. Stressed or controlling? He didn't answer. He just stared at the ground. That was the first time I saw the cracks, not in their relationship, but in mine with him. And it hurt more than I expected. The morning of the wedding felt like someone else's dream. We all arrived early, my mom fixing corsages, my sister arranging hairpins, me running around with tissues and lipstick. Sabrina floated by like a queen. Her photographer followed her everywhere, clicking, adjusting, whispering directions. I remember helping Aunt Nora fix her shawl in the background of one of the shots, the photographer snapping a picture and saying, "Perfect, just like that." That moment sticks in my head because that was the photo I asked for later, the one she swore never existed. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll give her that. Ethan looked happy, and for a brief, stupid moment, I thought maybe I'd misjudged her. Weeks later, the photos dropped online. I remember sitting at my kitchen counter, coffee in hand, scrolling through the wedding album Sabrina had posted on Instagram. She'd tagged vendors, makeup artists, bridesmaids, distant cousins, everyone. Except us. I scrolled again. No photo of me, my parents, or my sister. Not one. In the entire 3-minute highlight reel, the only time our family appeared was a blurry 3-second clip of my parents hugging the couple. We'd been erased. I texted her, politely. "Hey, Sabrina, the photos look gorgeous. Could you send me the ones we took with the siblings? None of them were posted, and my mom really wants one for the family album." She replied within minutes. "Oh, we actually didn't take any with just siblings. Sorry." That was a lie. I remembered standing right there, fixing Ethan's boutonniere while she posed. I remembered my dad asking for just one with the kids. So I said, "That's strange. I remember taking some." She doubled down. "Nope, I think you're misremembering. We were so rushed, it must have slipped by." Gaslighting in real time. I stared at the message for a long time, that slow burn crawling up my chest. Then I put my phone down and told myself it wasn't worth it. But something inside me shifted that day. A quiet, cold click. For 6 months, I said nothing. I watched her post-anniversary pictures, vacations, even a 1 year since the proposal montage, every moment curated to perfection. My brother? He barely called. When he did, it was rushed. "We've been so busy, you know how it is." I stopped correcting him when he said, "we," but I never forgot. Then one afternoon, over coffee with my book club girls, someone joked, "You're so organized, Hannah. You probably already planned your own wedding." I smiled. "Actually, maybe I have." They laughed. I didn't. Because by then, I was already engaged. To Liam, the one person who'd seen me at my worst and still said, "Let's build something better." And as I looked at the ring on my finger, I realized this wasn't just my wedding. This was balance. Liam knew the story. Every cruel comment, every deleted photo. He was the one who said, "You don't need revenge. You've already won. She's miserable in her own little world." He meant it kindly, but there's a difference between moving on and making peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I was deliberate. So when we met our photographer, I asked quietly, "Can your videographer take special focus on one person?" He nodded, curious. "Sure. Who are we spotlighting? A parent? Maid of honor?" I smiled. "Someone very special. I'll point her out." He didn't need to know more. That night, as I sat at my desk with the wedding invite list,
I hovered over one name, Sabrina Carter. I almost didn't include her. But then I remembered her face that night at the rehearsal dinner. That smirk, that look of superiority. So I invited her, but I made sure her name was spelled wrong. It wasn't cruelty, it was symmetry. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and whispered to myself, this time, she'll know what it feels like to disappear. But if I'd known what was coming, I would have left that night.
At first, I didn't tell anyone. Not even Liam knew the full plan. He thought the photographer's special mission was just creative direction, maybe a cinematic touch. But I couldn't risk anyone talking. Not my mom, not my dad, not even my brother Ethan. Ethan and I hadn't really talked in months. His texts came with the same rhythm every time. Busy, sorry, or we'll catch up soon. Soon never came. One Sunday, Mom called. Honey, did you invite Ethan and Sabrina to the wedding? I just want to make sure everyone got their invitations. I hesitated. Yes, they got theirs. Good, she said softly. I know things were tense, but family is family. I wanted to scream because she didn't see it. How Sabrina's little barbs had driven wedges between us. How my brother's new loyalty had a price. But I just said, yeah, family. The word tasted different now. A week later, I got cornered. We were at a family dinner, one of those rare gatherings where everyone pretends nothing's wrong. Ethan and Sabrina arrived late, fashionably, of course. She swept in like the wind brought her, hugged Mom like she was auditioning for an award, and sat down across from me. The air was tight. Halfway through dinner, she looked up from her plate and said, all casual, "So, I heard your wedding's next week. Congratulations." Her voice was syrup sweet. I smiled. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have to work the day before and after your wedding, but I should still be able to make it. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration. Like she was doing me a favor by attending. I felt Liam's hand squeeze mine under the table, a silent, don't take the bait. So I smiled wider. That's fine. The Airbnb is booked whether you're there or not. The table went silent for a beat. Then Dad cleared his throat and changed the subject. But I caught the flicker in her eyes, that flash of irritation when control slips away. And that's when the idea stopped being petty. It became poetic.
That night, I told the videographer everything. We met at a small cafe, tucked in a corner booth with my wedding binder between us. He was a soft-spoken guy named Colin, mid-30s, with a patient kind of smile. So, he said, flipping through my notes, you want me to follow this guest around, make her feel like the main focus? I nodded. Exactly. Make her think she's being featured, frame her beautifully, get shots of her laughing, talking, dancing, everything. He chuckled. You planning to surprise her? I took a sip of my latte and said quietly, you could say that. He didn't ask questions after that, just smiled knowingly. Before I left, I said one more thing. Whatever happens, when you're editing, she doesn't make the final cut. Not one frame. He nodded once. Consider it done. For a few nights, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words from the dinner table, wondering if maybe I'd gone too far. Liam noticed. You've been quiet, he said one night, wrapping his arm around me. Just nerves, I lied. He kissed the top of my head. Whatever happens, it's just one day. Don't let anyone ruin it. But this wasn't just about a day. It was about dignity. You see, when someone tries to erase you, not by yelling, not by fighting, but by pretending you never mattered, that does something to you. It makes you doubt your own memories. It makes you question your worth. And I wasn't going to let her write the story of my life, too.
The morning of the rehearsal, she showed up. I heard her before I saw her, heels clicking across the floor, voice floating through the air like perfume. Oh my gosh, everything looks so rustic, chic. So you, Hannah. She emphasized you like it was an insult. She hugged Liam too long, complimented my flowers, and somehow found a way to correct the coordinator's schedule without even knowing what it was. The entire time, Colin's camera hovered, just like I'd asked. He followed her with professional precision, nodding, adjusting lenses, capturing her like she was the star of the show. I caught her glancing at the camera, straightening her posture, flashing that perfect smile. Good. Let her believe it. That night, while we all gathered for a quick dinner before the big day, the tension hit a breaking point. Ethan pulled me aside. Hey, what's going on between you and Sabrina? She said you've been cold lately. I froze. Cold? Yeah, she feels like you're holding a grudge or something. I wanted to laugh. A grudge? After she deleted us from existence? You know what, Ethan? Maybe I am. He sighed. Look, I know she can be particular, but she loves you guys. She's just trying to make things perfect. Perfect. That word again. I stared at him for a long time. Do you even hear yourself anymore? You used to hate fake people. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You're overreacting. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't defending her because he believed her. He was defending her because he couldn't afford to admit she was wrong. If he did, the whole illusion of their perfect life would crumble. That's when I realized they were never on my side.
I went to bed that night with my heart thudding too loud to sleep. My mind replayed every fake smile, every backhanded comment, every lie. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt calm. Because tomorrow the cameras would roll, and for once, the lens would tell the truth. Not through words, not through confrontation, but through the silence of absence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than anything. The next morning, as the sun rose over the vineyard venue, I stood in front of the mirror, veil in hand. Liam walked in quietly, kissed my shoulder and whispered, "Ready?" I smiled, more than ever. But deep down, I knew the real ceremony hadn't even started. Because some vows aren't made in churches. They're made in silence, between two people who know exactly what they're doing. And mine was simple. You erased me once, never again. I wish I could tell you that I cried that night, that I broke down like the movie show, mascara running, heart shattering, glass of wine trembling in my hand. But I didn't. I just sat there on my couch, watching the video again and again and again. Every time, it hurt a little less. Not because I was healing, but because something inside me had gone completely still, like grief had burned out and left behind nothing but quiet, focused rage. Mom called the next morning. Her voice was soft, shaky, the way people sound when they've aged overnight. "Hannah," she whispered, "please don't say anything. Your brother, he doesn't know what she did." I laughed, actually laughed, because if Ethan didn't know, it was because he chose not to. "Mom," I said, "she didn't erase us by accident. She planned it, every detail." Mom sighed. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But we're family. We can't start a war." Family. That word used to mean warmth and noise and Sunday dinners. Now it sounded like a leash. So I said nothing. For weeks, every time I opened Instagram, I saw Sabrina's face. Her wedding photos went viral. Her caption said, "Married my best friend surrounded by our closest family and friends." Closest. She even pinned that post. People commented things like, "You two look so perfect. Family goals. The love in your photos feels so pure." And there it was, that ache again. Not because she'd erased us, but because the world believed her version of the story. We'd been edited out not just from her wedding, but from reality. The silence between us. Ethan barely called after that. When he did, it was quick. "Hey, how's work? Gotta run." And then gone. Mom pretended everything was fine. Dad stopped asking. Mara, my younger sister, just said what we were all thinking. "She won, hon. You can't fix it. People like her always win." But something in me wouldn't let go. Not of the anger, not of the truth. Because when someone takes your family and edits you out of the picture, you start wondering what would happen if the camera ever turned the other way. 6 months later, my phone buzzed. A wedding invitation. Not mine, not Sabrina's either. It was from one of her friends, a girl named Tessa, who'd been one of Sabrina's bridesmaids. The card read, "We'd be honored to have you at our wedding. Photography by Sabrina Keller Productions." My stomach turned. Sabrina had started her own wedding photography business? Of course she had. And of course, she was using Ethan's last name. Her new business page said, "We capture the love stories that deserve to be remembered forever." The irony was acid in my throat. That night, I scrolled through her page. Hundreds of photos. Brides, grooms, tears, laughter. But then I noticed something else. Small, but deliberate. Not a single photo of anyone darker-skinned, heavier, disabled, or visibly queer. Every frame was curated to perfection, airbrushed to fit her aesthetic. She hadn't just erased us. She was erasing anyone who didn't fit her idea of beautiful. And that's when it hit me. If she could build a brand on selective memory, then I could build one on truth. It started small. I dusted off my old camera, the one Dad gave me in college before I switched to marketing. I hadn't touched it in years. I began taking photos again, raw, unfiltered portraits of real couples. No editing, no filters, just people, flaws, laughter, and all. I created a new page called Unfiltered Weddings. I didn't tag Sabrina, didn't mention her, didn't need to, but I started getting traction. Brides messaged saying, "Finally someone who gets it." Others said, "I wish you'd shot mine. Our photographer erased half the moments that mattered." Sabrina's name came up. Again and again. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. She'd built an empire on perfect lies, and I was about to light a match. 3 weeks later, my post went viral. It was a side-by-side collage, one of Sabrina's magazine-perfect wedding shots, and one of mine. Same couple, same day, but unfiltered. Caption: "Sometimes perfection hides the people who made it possible." It exploded overnight. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. People started digging through Sabrina's portfolio. They noticed the same pattern: polished, filtered, selective. And then one user found our wedding photo collection, the one she'd erased us from. They posted, "Wait, why does this bride have no family photos, even though she tagged family in her story?" The thread blew up, and that's when Sabrina texted me for the first time in 6 months. "What the hell did you do?" I stared at my phone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Nothing, just told the truth." She didn't reply. But that night, she deleted her business page. The next morning, Ethan showed up at my door. "Hannah, you need to stop. She's crying. People are attacking her." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "She erased us, Ethan. All I did was remind people we exist." He didn't say another word. He just left. But as the door closed behind him, I realized something. He hadn't come to defend her. He'd come to see if I'd really do it. And the answer was yes. I was just getting started.
They tell you revenge will ruin you, that it will eat you whole until you're nothing but teeth and hunger. That wasn't my experience. My revenge tasted quiet, careful. I chewed slow. I savored the symmetry. When I started, I'd imagine fireworks, a dramatic confrontation, a viral call-out, a public meltdown. But life doesn't hand you fireworks. Life hands you small, surgical opportunities. You have to be precise. So, I was precise. Remember Colin, the videographer? He wasn't just my camera guy. He was my insurance policy. 2 months before the wedding, I'd given him exacting instructions. Follow Sabrina. That's how her RSVP read, the name I spelled wrong on purpose. Make her feel like the star. Record everything. Get wide shots. Get close-ups. Get intimate, candid moments. Feed her ego. Give her what she wanted. He agreed because he was an artist who liked irony. And because to him, the best stories always had a twist. On the day, he camped near her, lens hungry. He filmed the way she tilted her head when complimented. He filmed her flash-bulb smile when someone said, "You look incredible." He even filmed the moment she paused, sensing the camera's attention, that little smug lift in her eyebrow. She loved it. She preened for the frame like a peacock who'd been promised an audience. Only no one told her the audience would be the wrong one. Liam and I sat in the tiny editing room with Colin for the first sneak peek. The room smelled like coffee and tape. Screens glowed. Raw footage scrolled like a river of seconds. Colin fed clips into the timeline. He put a slow piano under the vows. He let laughter breathe. He showed us the dance floor, the tear on my mom's cheek, Liam's hand steady when I walked down the aisle. Then he stopped. He pointed at a string of footage, a long take of Sabrina, mid-laugh, framed in a shaft of afternoon light. "She's good on camera," he said. "She thinks she is," I said. Colin raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "More than sure," I answered. He smiled. "All right, we give her what she wants." That night, I went home with a calm I'd never felt before. It was the calm of someone who had set a trap and watched it close. You can plan for months. You can position people. You can collect evidence. But sometimes the last domino falls on a single tiny motion. A text you send, an email you hit send on, a video you post. For me, it was a message to our wedding mailing list. We'd created a private digital album for guests, a link that would let people view teaser clips and sneak peeks before the full cut. It was a gesture of thanks, a way to share the day with distant loved ones. I scheduled it to go live at 9 a.m. the day after the wedding. At 8:58 a.m., I added one final file to the album, a short montage titled, simply, Highlights, Family and Friends. I didn't preview it after exporting. I didn't need to. My hands were steady. At 9 a.m., the email went out. One message, one click. When people think of erasure, they imagine holes. They imagine black spaces where faces should be. That's not how erasure works. Erasure is active. It's carefully curated absence. It's every frame telling a deliberate story. Who was worthy of being remembered and who wasn't? I made the montage with that idea in mind. Start with the vows. Cut to Liam pulling me close. Insert a slow pan across the guests. Laughter, tissues, hands held. Focus on the people who had shown up for us, who had been present in the small moments. Let the camera linger on my parents' wrinkled hands. Let it dwell on Mara's nervous, proud smile. Let it breathe. No Sabrina. Not because she hadn't been filmed. She had. Colin's camera had adored her. But the final montage, the one every guest would watch first, included 0 frames of her. Not one. Not even a blink.
It was the same erasure she'd performed. It was the same silence she'd given us. Except this time, everyone would see it. The first reply came from my Aunt Nora. "It's so beautiful," I cried.
That evening, 2 weeks later, our families gathered for a post-wedding brunch. It was supposed to be a civil wind-down. Instead, it was a courtroom. Sabrina arrived, hair perfect, eyes hard. She grabbed my mom and hugged her like she'd been wounded by a cruel prank. She looked around the room with wounded dignity, as if everyone had conspired against her. She found me near the coffee urn. "Hannah," she said, slow and deliberate, "you knew exactly what you were doing." I took a breath. Liam's hand found mine. Mara stood close. I said, "You erased my family." Quiet. "You made it so people I love don't appear in what was supposed to be a memory for all of us. I decided to give you a taste of how that feels." She laughed, a short, brittle sound. "You think this is about balance? This is childish." "Maybe," I said, "but it's also true." She leaned in, close enough that I could smell the expensive shampoo. "You're petty," she hissed. "You're jealous." "No," I said. "I'm tired." For a moment, she looked like she might cry. She pressed her lips together and forced the expression to be anger instead. "You don't get to decide who remembers me." "No," I replied, "but I do get to decide who remembers me." The room hummed with uncomfortable silence. People shifted in their seats. Cousins exchanged glances. Mom looked at both of us and finally, for the first time in months, looked like she didn't know what to choose. Later, after she left, a neighbor I'd only spoken to once pulled me aside. I didn't realize what she'd done." I nodded. Most people don't. That's the point. The next week, Sabrina's bookings slowed. People who had been on the fence found someone else. Vendors who had vouched for her tentatively pulled back. A few brides messaged me privately, thanking me for putting out an example of what not to do. Sabrina lashed out on social media, vague posts about unprofessional attacks and jealous competitors. But in the age of screenshots and archives, vague posts sound defensive. They look like cover-ups. Her name trended locally for 2 days. Then it fell. But the damage was done. Real clients had seen the pattern. Real couples had seen the consequences of a curated life. Real people had begun to prefer honest photos over curated perfection. And then, and a blow I hadn't expected, Ethan called. His voice was tight. "Hannah, she's devastated. People are being awful. It's getting to her." I was quiet for a long moment. In that silence, I heard the echo of every half-hearted apology I'd ever been offered. "Ethan, did she ever apologize for erasing us?" There was a pause like a trapped animal. "No." "Then why should I be the one to fix her?" He hadn't thought through that part. Revenge is rarely cinematic. It doesn't always end with a speech or a confession. Sometimes it ends with small, irreversible shifts. Sabrina lost a few clients. She got harsher in her posts. She spoke about learning experiences in interviews with wedding blogs. But most importantly, to me, she could no longer pretend that the world didn't notice her choices. It felt like a stop on a road where we both kept driving but in opposite directions. I sat on my porch one evening with a cup of tea. The sun slid low, painting our street gold. Liam put his arm around me. "You okay?" he asked. I looked at him, then at the house where our photos were propped on the mantel. I looked at the way my mother laughed at a memory I'd helped preserve.
I am, I said. For the first time in months, I'm actually okay. But this wasn't the end. There was one more piece left in my pocket. The thing I'd been saving for when the timing was just right. A thing that, if released, would change how people saw Sabrina forever. I could release it publicly. I could send it to local blogs. I could make her face her choices with evidence that couldn't be edited away. Or I could hold it. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't to destroy. It's to let the other person live with their conscience, heavy and loud. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, the file waiting like a key. One message, one click. And then I paused.
Revenge doesn't echo the way you think it will. It doesn't sound like laughter or applause. It sounds like silence, the kind that follows a truth everyone feels but no one dares to speak. That's the silence I woke up to every day after the wedding. No messages from Sabrina, no more family drama threads, no one asking me to just let it go. Everyone finally knew what she had done, and for the first time, they knew I hadn't imagined it. For weeks, that file lived in my phone like a secret heartbeat. A short clip Colin had shown me from the raw footage, one Sabrina would have never wanted anyone to see. It wasn't scandalous. It wasn't cruel. It was just real. In it, she was on the dance floor, alone, while everyone else formed a circle around Liam and I. She smiled for the camera, waiting for it to focus on her, waiting for her moment, but the lens panned away and caught her expression fall. Not angry, not smug, just hollow. It was maybe 3 seconds long. 3 seconds that told the truth she'd spent years hiding behind filters and fake smiles. Every time I thought about posting it, maybe as a quiet clapback or a lesson about what goes around comes around, something in me stopped. Not out of pity, out of perspective. I'd already won. A month later, Liam and I hosted a movie night at our place. Just a few close friends, some wine, leftover wedding cake from the freezer. Someone brought up the video again. "I still can't believe you managed to do that so smoothly," Mara said. "You didn't even have to raise your voice." I laughed. That was kind of the point. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. I thought about it, about the effort, the months of quiet planning, the way it consumed me more than I liked to admit. "I regret that it got to that point," I said finally, "that it ever became necessary." Because that's the part people don't tell you about revenge. It doesn't just cost your enemy something, it takes something from you too. You spend so long holding on to anger that when it's gone, you have to remember who you were before it. Thanksgiving came around faster than I expected. Same dining room, same awkward laughter, only now the air was different. My mom kept the conversation neutral. My dad complimented the turkey twice just to fill the silence. Sabrina wasn't there. Ethan came alone. He looked tired, older somehow. After dinner, he asked if we could talk privately. We stepped out to the porch, the air crisp, the yard glowing under fairy lights. "She's not doing well," he said softly. "Business dropped off. She's paranoid all the time, thinks everyone's talking about her." "Are they?" He gave a small, sad laugh. "Maybe, but not as much as she thinks." He looked at me for a long moment. "She's not a bad person, just fragile." That word, fragile, made something twist inside me. She wasn't fragile when she erased us. She was deliberate. He nodded slowly. "You're right." Then, after a pause, "She said she can't look at herself in the mirror anymore. That every time she edits photos now, she thinks of you."
I didn't know what to say to that. Some part of me, the human part, ached for him, for the brother caught in between. But another part of me, the one that had been invisible in her wedding video, finally exhaled.
The highlight reel from our wedding went up on YouTube about 2 months later. It wasn't a huge production, just a simple upload for family who couldn't attend. Within a week, it had a few thousand views. Comments filled with love, strangers calling it the most genuine wedding I've ever seen. Someone even wrote, "It's so refreshing to see real emotion. No fake moments, just honest joy." I smiled at that, because that's what the whole thing had been about. Honesty. No erasure, no filters, no pretending. Just the people who had shown up, who had cared. The ones who stayed when the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling. It was almost 6 months later when I saw her again, by accident, at a mutual friend's baby shower. I hadn't expected her to be there. She looked thinner, her hair darker, her voice quieter. When our eyes met, there wasn't anger anymore, just exhaustion. She walked over, hesitated, then said, "You look happy." It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't nothing either. "I am," I said. "You?" She nodded once, trying. We stood there in silence for a moment, surrounded by laughter and chatter and the rustle of gift wrap. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You were right, about how it feels to be erased." I looked at her, searching her expression for sarcasm, but there was none. Just tired honesty. "Did it change anything?" I asked. "Everything," she said quietly. She didn't stay long after that, neither did I. But when I got home that night, I finally deleted the file, the clip that had been haunting my phone.
Months later, I was flipping through our wedding album when I found a photo that made me stop. It wasn't one of the perfect shots, no dramatic sunset or cinematic lighting. It was candid, blurry even. My mom laughing mid-sentence, my dad wiping a tear, Liam looking at me like the world made sense again, and me, not posing, not performing, just being. That was the moment I realized the real revenge wasn't in deleting her face from my story, it was in remembering who I was without her shadow. Ethan and I are still close. We don't talk about her much, and when we do, it's gentle, like touching an old bruise. Mom eventually printed our wedding photo and framed it above the fireplace. Every time someone visits, she tells the same story about love, resilience, and a daughter who finally got her peace. No one mentions Sabrina anymore. Not out of cruelty, out of closure. Because some stories end not with shouting, but with silence that means we've moved on.
If I'm honest, revenge didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel balanced. Like the universe had tilted back into place after wobbling too long. I didn't destroy her. I didn't humiliate her. I simply showed her, and everyone else, what absence feels like when it's deliberate. And maybe that's enough. Because sometimes justice doesn't look like punishment, it looks like peace. And peace, I've learned, is the loudest kind of revenge. They still don't talk about it, but they remember. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with truth. And sometimes that's the only kind of peace you ever get.